Honest Advent, Chapter 23, Attention. Matthew 2:2. Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. Nothing can be truly known through observation, only through participation. This truth is perhaps best depicted in the film Good Will Hunting. There is a scene where Will, boy genius with a lot of relational trauma issues, played by actor Matt Damon, meets with his court design therapist Sean, played by Robin Williams. The day before, in Sean's office, Will, trying to escape the uncomfortableness of being asked vulnerable questions, pokes at Sean's character by critiquing a painting he did that hangs on the wall in his office, saying it's garbage, just like his career as a small-time community college psych professor and his recently ended marriage because of his wife's cancer. This gets under Sean's skin, and the meeting ends abruptly. On a park bench the next day, Sean tells Will he stayed up all night long thinking about what Will had said about his painting. But he slept like a baby when he realized that Will was just a kid who has never left Boston. He knew Will could tell him all about Michelangelo from books he'd read, but he couldn't tell Sean what it smelled like in the Sistine Chapel, what it feels like to look up at that beautiful piece in Italy. Will could tell Sean all about marriage and probably recite some beautiful poetry about it, but he could never tell Sean what it feels like to wake up next to a person day after day for years and know you are truly loved. There's a difference between reading books about life and the actual risk and reward of living a life of travel, valor, love, and service. There is a deep knowing that can only be attained through participation. The Bible tells us very little about the Magi. They are described as mysterious visitors from the east who have come to Jerusalem looking for the child whose star they observed at its rising. They have an awkward run-in with King Herod, who knows nothing about this newborn king, but now is secretly plotting this baby's destruction. They follow the star to Bethlehem, where upon seeing baby Jesus, they kneel down and worship him, presenting him with their three famous gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They return home, never to be heard of again, and their identity has remained a mystery to this day. Christians have been trying to figure out who they were for a very long time, as early as AD 200. The running theory is that these Magi, more than three, were a sort of upper-class, wealthy, star-watching celebrity priesthood, most likely based in Persia. The Magi would have been familiar with the prophecies of a coming God-as-man savior from the captivity of Israelite slaves several hundred years earlier in Babylon. So when they saw an unusual star in the west, maybe a supernova, a conjunction of planets, or just a good old-fashioned supernatural manifestation, they made the long journey to find the king. Their identity will most likely always be shrouded in mystery, but at least we get 1, a catchy song out of it, and 2, a fantastic model of what it means to pay attention. They were paying attention to what was around them. Yes, the world, the sky, the stars. But they were also paying attention to how those exterior patterns were pointing to the interior patterns inside their hearts and souls. It may not be necessary to figure out the origins of the Magi, because the truth of their journey is what is truly transformational for us, that God places patterns inside us that will be revealed in the patterns of the exterior world. Was the deep desire of the Magi to go on a road trip? I'm not saying the journey wasn't enjoyable, but remember, they didn't have AC and cruise control, just desert heat and camel humps. The deep desire of the Magi was to connect with the Creator of the world, and they trusted the Creator to reveal the interior journey of the soul and the exterior world around them. They wanted to know God, and they were willing to move from observation to participation in the pursuit of knowing. There was no promise that in traveling hundreds of miles in unknown territory, that they were going to find their way to this prophesied incarnation, but because of their deep desire to know God, they were willing to trust the signs in the sky to go and see. Is it too fantastical to think that the giver of your spirit, who is also the giver of this material world, will use both of those given realities to lead you to a deeper knowing? Are we not pointed to birds and flowers as signposts of God's benevolence? Are we not pointed to feeding the hungry and giving water to the thirsty as interactions with the King of Kings himself? Have you not whispered something in the material world that made your soul whisper, "I think someone's trying to get my attention"? I remember early on in my art career, sensing the invitation to go full-time. I had the traditional artist part-time job as a waiter at a nearby restaurant, but I reached a point in my career where I was turning down art jobs because I couldn't get my shifts covered. I talked with other professional creatives and prayed for a time when I would know that the moment was right to put in my 2 weeks' notice at the restaurant. I remember driving to work that day, and it seemed like all creation was affirming this decision. Tom Petty's "Time to Move On" played the radio. Billboards for airlines and new condo construction screamed messages such as "Ready for a change" and "Take the leap." Even the migrating geese overhead proclaimed that this was a season of change and I was making the right decision. It was a leap of faith. I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but I could hear the divine inviting me into this full-time identity, and I wanted to see if it was true. Others could do it. Why not me? I moved from observation to participation. We may not be asked to travel hundreds of miles to experience the presence of a newborn king, but the stars leading you to a deeper knowledge of God may be just as mysterious now as they were back then. The wonder in God with us is found in paying attention to the exterior patterns that illuminate the patterns within. If you are watching, you'll see them. Then you too will be asked to move from observation to participation in the ancient journey of knowing the divine. May you keep paying attention to what the outside illuminates inside.